Good morning, garden people. I'm here in the shade garden and I wanted to update everyone on what's going on here, as well as give a quick overview of what I plan to do with my big perennial garden here on the side and the back of the house. All kinds of projects planned and very excited about it. And I figured that by videoing it and putting it, out there in the interwebs, that would make sure that I'm motivated to follow through with it, because now people have seen what I want to do, and yeah, so there's a little bit of pressure to finish these projects, but very excited about it. First, however, I want to show you what's going on in the shade garden. When I last videoed, I talked about the new propane tanks and the lack of deer fencing, and yeah, lots has changed. First, let's talk about deer, or what I thought was deer. I came out to the garden a few weeks back and found a couple of my hostas munched on. These two hostas right here look like they'd been chewed on. And since I hadn't put up my deer fencing, I thought, oh, well, it's just the deer. So I figured I would put up my posts with some leftover bird netting that I had. And, my fault. I didn't put up the fishing line that I normally put up, and so the deer came in and munched my hostas. No big deal. So got the bird netting up all around the outside perimeter of the shade garden where I have my hostas, and thought, I'm good. Yeah. Well, a couple of days later, I was wandering out here, and yeah, I came out and found almost all of my hostas under the maple and up the hill, except for these two large variegated ones. I'm not sure why not, because those are right next to everything else. And all the way up in here, just mowed down. So of course I thought, oh my gosh, the deer got into my garden somehow and, just had a salad bar of hosta. But then I got looking closer at the dirt around the hostas and realized there were no hoof prints, no deer hoof prints, no sign that deer had actually been in the garden, which of course led me to believe, not deer, it's got to be something else. And then I saw him, the woodchuck. We have a woodchuck, yeah. He's over in the barn foundation on the other side of the house, but we've seen him out and about, and yeah, it's him. So, plan B, yeah. We're going to be addressing the woodchuck problem, and thankfully the hostas won't be permanently damaged. They'll be fine. It's fall, getting close to fall, so they've had plenty of time to photosynthesize with their leaves and, do what they need to do. So they'll be fine. It's just going to look like crap for, a few months until fall comes and everything dies back anyway. So moving on. So in my last garden video, we were just about to embark on the propane tank project, and here they are in all their big white blobby tank glory. Oh, they're awful, aren't they? But this gives me an opportunity to disguise them and landscape around them. Haven't done too much yet, but soon. My plan is to come in here, this opening here, and put flagstones or some other pavers up to the tanks to sort of lead the propane people right to the tanks. We can't really move this pile of rocks because that is our wellhead. And then this rock, we haven't actually attempted to move much. We dug around it a little bit a long time ago when we were first putting this garden in, and it goes way deeper than is protruding out. And so we've just decided we're going to leave it there. So I'm going to make a little pathway through here with pavers to lead up to the tanks so that the heating company can come in and fill it on a regular basis. And then I will surround this with some sort of fencing. I'm still working on it, trying to figure out what I'm going to do exactly, but it's done, and the trench is all filled in. As you can see, it goes to the house, and there is where the gas line goes into the house, and I'm going to do something there too to kind of disguise it, not cover it up, but just distract from this thing sticking out of the side of the house. So add that to the list of things to do. So not everything is gloom and doom in the garden. There are some bright spots, starting with this little thing right here. Let me show you. We have these pink flowers popping up along the wall here, and every year I'm always surprised by them, and then I remember, oh yeah, these are here. These are commonly known as naked ladies. They're a relative of the amaryllis, and these are the hardy ones since we are in zone 5. These are lycoris, and I cannot remember the full name, but I will put that below the screen. And they're really pretty. They look like little baby amaryllis. And so in the springtime, the way these work, in the springtime, you'll see strappy little leaves pop up at the base of where these stalks are coming out. And they look like large daffodil leaves, really, and they blend in with all the daffodils that I've got planted along here anyway. So you don't really notice them. And then the leaves die back, and there's nothing to indicate that there's anything growing here. And then all of a sudden in August, these stalks pop up with these beautiful pink amaryllis-shaped flowers. And it's just a joy to see them every year. It's also a little reminder that fall isn't far behind. These seem to come up mid-August. They seem to have come up a little early this year. They've been up for probably a week or so, and that just seemed earlier. Usually it's like mid to late August that they come up, but I don't know. They make me happy, and I'm happy to see them every year because that usually means that cooler weather is coming. So yeah, a bright spot in the garden. So now I'm going to walk you through what I'm planning for this big perennial border that starts here in the shade garden and wraps around the back of the house into a full sun garden that, quite frankly, has been completely neglected this year. And I've just been so busy with other things, and it's embarrassing because I like to, think of myself as a gardener. And when my gardens aren't in tip-top shape, I'm embarrassed and frustrated, but I shouldn't be. So anyway, I'm going to show you what's been going on and what I plan to do this fall and into next year to really focus on these gardens once and for all and make them what I want them to be. I'm going to start here in the shade garden, at the edge of the shade garden, and show you a few things. The tanks that are in the back obviously are going to be covered. We talked about that earlier. And you'll notice there's some plants right here in front of the tanks. Those are still in pots. Those are things that are going to go in up above the tanks in this section up here to fill in that perennial section. They're just living in pots right now because I haven't had a chance to get to them. This seeding area, once I remove the sand here, and I don't have seats in it because we were working on the propane tank project. Once I remove this sand, we'll put a table and chairs and some lounge chairs in here. This will generally remain the same. I'm not going to expand the size of this, but I do plan to do something in this corner here to sort of disguise that mini split without impeding its function. And I'm also going to come up, I have this great idea for a little tiny pond garden right in this corner here. I have a neat container that I will show in another video, and there's an outlet there that will allow me to plug in a little pump to have a little water feature there. That will be nice when we're sitting here in the shade in the hot summer. Moving along here, this part really isn't going to change much. I'll add plants and such and try to do something a little better for deer fencing. But the garden kind of ends right here. Next to the shade garden, this hill rises up to the barn, and it's always been a little bit of a problem for me what to do with it, and it actually expands over in this direction. Up above on this level part of the slope is our blueberry patch that we inherited from the previous homeowners. There's probably about 20 high bush blueberries in there, and we've actually shifted. We built this new structure this summer, and we are shifting the bushes further west toward the sunlight, as you can see. And so these 4 bushes here are going to get dug up in the fall and shifted over in this direction, which will open this space up even more. This little scrappy patch of weeds and goldenrod and such has been sort of a thorn in my side for a couple of years. This was left by the previous homeowner, and there were actually some nice things in there that I've been digging up over the years. Some low-growing geraniums. Let me show you over here. These little low-growing geraniums, dug those all out of that bed. There was some coreopsis in here, a few other things. And so I didn't want to just dig it out and destroy it until I figured out what was in here and what was salvageable. I've reached the point where there's really not much left in here except goldenrod and some old phlox that really isn't doing well, and various weeds. So the rest of that is going to get dug out, completely wiped clean, and mostly for now converted into pasture grass. We don't have a Kentucky bluegrass green lawn. It is a mishmash of weeds and various species in clover, which we are perfectly fine with. So that's what this will become mostly. Back to this slope, I'm going to expand the shade garden out up to the blueberry structure here. So this whole section here will become part of the shade garden. It stays in shade most of the day, so perfect opportunity. I just have to figure out how to get things up the slope, including some sort of access path, without digging too deeply and disturbing the roots of this beautiful maple that we love so much. Walking up the hill along the edge of the perennial garden, ignore the bucket, you'll notice that the slope surrounding the barn is covered in black plastic. Not very attractive here. This slope came about as the result of the construction of the barn, and this is all the new soil that was piled up against the foundation, and it raised the barn up. We had to raise the barn up a little bit, so it's created this slopey area, which was originally seeded in grass and is just kind of a pain to mow. So I've decided that it is all going to become part of the big garden plan behind the house here. We'll take a little walk along the edge of this black plastic so I can look back and show you the extent of it. It goes along the edge of the blueberry structure. Hello, blueberries. The blueberries have pretty much gone by. I've picked tons of blueberries, shared tons of blueberries, and then opened up the bird netting on the top to allow the birds to get in and clean them up. So they're pretty much done at this point. Anyway, so we're walking along the edge of the black plastic, and let me turn around here, and you'll see we're on the corner of the barn looking back. So this whole slope will be garden. And I haven't exactly figured out what I'm going to plant here, but I think I'm going to do a lot of shrubs. Some native shrubs, definitely. Some ornamental shrubs. And this garden is going to wrap around, and I'm going to dig out more of this turf here, but wrap around to the edge of the driveway. And I'm going to have like a little tree, ornamental tree right here. And then probably do a little bit of terracing. Cut maybe 1 or 2 slight terraces just to cut down on runoff, and fill it with all kinds of neat stuff. And that way my poor husband won't have to mow this and struggle to mow it every couple of weeks. This black plastic, just to explain it, is one of the garden tarps that I have in the vegetable garden. And it's 6 mil plastic with white on the bottom and black on the top. And we put it here about a month or so ago. And we're going to leave it here until probably September, maybe into October. Haven't decided yet. And really kill the grass without using herbicides or physical labor to get rid of the grass. And then I've been amassing cardboard like a pack rat in the carport, and I will lay down cardboard and we'll pile good dirt on top of that and probably tarp it again for the winter. I don't think I'm gonna get around to planting this until the spring, but I wanted to start the grass killing process now. We will probably tarp it for the winter again and then start planting in the spring. So coming back around the barn to the eastern side, here we bump into the perennial garden. It continues all the way around to the eastern side of the barn and stops just shy of the shed row so that we can get in and hook up the brush hog back into the shed row and hook up the brush hog to the tractor right there. But this border, it'll curve down here and go right into the perennial garden behind the house. Now this perennial garden behind the house, it's looking pretty shabby right now. As you can see, it goes all the way to the end of the house, pretty much. It has been in a state of benign neglect this year. I showed you a video earlier of what it looked like last year, and it wasn't too bad. But really, it's just been neglected this year, and that is totally my fault. I got myself too busy and overextended, and this poor garden has suffered. So I'm back down below the perennial garden in the shade. The sun is out right now, and so I'm having trouble seeing while I'm filming, but I wanted to continue this tour. So behind me is the perennial border. There we go. And I've started, as you can see, this bare spot here, I've started digging out this section between the shade garden and the barn, and there's a reason for that. This whole border has been kind of a collection of things that friends have given me, materials that I found here on the site when we moved, that I found interesting and wanted to hang on to as part of the history of the property. But really this perennial garden has been sort of thrown together without a real plan or much thought into design. So I've decided that I'm gonna sort of take the reins, if you will, and redesign this whole perennial garden to reflect what I want and the things that I enjoy in the garden, and not feel guilty about, removing plants that were either given to me or that I found here and felt sort of an obligation to hang on to. So what I'm going to do, let me show you. In this upper section here, between the shade garden and the staircase, the stone staircase that's in a bit of disrepair right now, this is going to be sort of the transition into the main sunny border. And I'm also going to section it off from the garden behind, up against the barn. That's going to be its own separate section. But this is mainly going to be some flowering shrubs and daylilies and nepeta along the wall here. The reason for the daylilies and nepeta is both of them flower throughout the season, and they also have good root systems that can help hold onto the soil close to the stone wall here, which is at the bottom of a little bit of a slope. On the other side of this section of the garden, I'm going to divide it from the garden up against the barn with a pathway, and haven't quite decided how I'm going to do that pathway. Probably just wood chips for now. And it's going to transition into the shade garden with more shrubs, things like rhododendrons and hydrangeas, and be much simplified. Definitely not a mishmash of species, more thoughtful plantings of fewer varieties, just to make it seem a little more put together and sort of calm. Down here on the lower garden, along the patio here, this isn't going to change too much, other than I'm going to thin out the Solomon seal, which just goes crazy here, and the ferns, which are also kind of going crazy here, and slowly dig out these orange daylilies. I've been digging them out a little bit each year, but they do a really good job of holding the soil up against this sloping stone wall. So I'm going to be slowly taking those out and putting things in that more fit in with the shade garden as we transition into the shade garden over here. Looking back on the patio from the shade garden, we put this patio in about 2 summers ago, and I haven't done a whole lot with it. But next year, I'm planning on putting pots of shade-loving annuals in here, along with a table and chairs, to sort of gussy this up. And as we come around here, back to the center of the perennial border with this staircase, this is going to be fixed up a little better. I dug part of it out when I was digging out this corner of the perennial garden as I'm digging this out. So there's some stones lying around. But this is going to be a pathway, a better pathway, up into the new garden that's going to be running along the barn there. And then swing around here, ignore the bucket. This section here has, from the day we bought the house, it's just been grass and weeds that we mow, and never been really happy with it. What happened when we put this patio in is the grade of this section here, as you can see, is a bit above and not level with the new patio. So another project, maybe next year, we'll see, is to basically excavate this down a little bit, get rid of all the grass, and all the way down to the greenhouse, as you can see way back there. So this area has been a problem spot since we moved here, and I put this perennial border in. One of the main reasons is that there are no gutters on the back of the house. And there's a tremendous amount of water that comes off the house and into this area that ultimately ends up probably in our basement for our basement sump to handle. And so part of the project in taking all of this out will be eventually to get gutters on the back of the house and funnel all of that into a rain barrel that I can then use to water the various pots and things that I'm going to have eventually in by the greenhouse. We'll also figure out some way to disguise this mini split that's a little better than this cobbed together scrap 2x4 and scrap roofing shelter, which has served us just fine for the last couple of years. And, you know, functions well, but just looks awful. So we'll have, this will be all cleared out. I may bring this border forward a little bit, and then it'll be gravel and pavers, a paver path going straight to the greenhouse. So back on the sunny side of the perennial border, which is looking a little ratty right now, there's still a lot of really nice stuff in here that I plan to keep, but there's a lot of stuff that is going to go, including a good portion of this huge patch of native bee balm. I just have way too much bee balm. I got it there. It's all in here. It's up in there. I've got so much bee balm. It's too much. It's dominating the garden and needs to go. Along with some rejiggering of how I'm going to cover this trellis. The honeysuckles I got haven't really been spectacular. This one here, whose name I can't remember, Wheeler something Wheeler. It's beautiful, and the hummingbirds love it, so I will keep it, and it's actually doing a pretty good job of filling this in. This one over here, Sensation, has just been kind of a disappointment. Hasn't done much of anything, so that might go somewhere else. But basically this whole border is going to be cleaned up, and all the stuff that I really just stuck in there because it seemed to fit is going to get rehomed. And then putting more drifts of good pollinator plants in here, except for this huge patch of bee balm. I mean, it's literally taking over the garden, and that's what bee balm does. So we're going to clean that up a bit. A lot of work to do in here. Most of this coreopsis is going to go, and there's a bunch of runner grass that has grown through most of my perennial garden from the pasture above. That's all got to get dug out. So much, much, much to do in this perennial border, and more to come. So as we come around to the greenhouse, this will become a pathway, and you can see my staging area right here for perennials and things that are going into various parts of the garden. This whole section here, which we just burned, is going to get a covering of landscape cloth and then pea gravel to keep the weeds down. And we're going to put planters on this edge here that falls down into the barn foundation. And my husband is paranoid that people are just going to fall off this edge. So to make him feel better, we're going to put planters along this edge with annuals. It'll be really pretty, and clean that up. So looking down into this barn foundation, this is actually a staircase that goes down into what was the basement of a very large barn. And this actually was where our old half barn was that we took down. And I'll include a video of that in a future video. But anyway, so this barn foundation is the site of a new and exciting project that I can't wait to tell you about, but I'm not going to tell you about it right now. That's a future teaser. Turning back around to the perennial garden again, nice view back to the barn. We'll go up above it and you'll see this stretch of gravel here. This is actually a drainage ditch to catch water running off of this hill and direct it down across here. And this right here is perforated pipe, and it goes down and runs along here and around the corner into a drainage swale. So all the water coming off this hillside is directed away from the house and the garden. And we will be populating this hill with more trees and helping to mitigate the water runoff. There's more projects there. But anyway, back to the perennial garden. This border of daylilies that I've just been using as a space holder is gonna go. And yeah, lots of daylilies. The orange ditch lilies that just multiply like crazy. I'm gonna convert this all to a grass border, different types of grasses. I think that'll be a beautiful complement to the perennials below it, and also act as kind of like a divider in a way, or a back wall to the perennial border. And then this ditch here with the riprap is, I think I'm going to fill that in with pea gravel to make it a more hospitable place to walk. It's really difficult to walk on now with the big chunks of rocks, so it's kind of an ankle turner. So we're going to make that a little more attractive and have it tie in to the pathway that will come up out of the staircase below here, from the perennial garden below. Oops, almost tripped there. So the staircase will come up, join this path with a path that will go that way along the contour of the hill. And yeah, this is probably going to end up being wood chip pathway, but it will lead you around the barn and then down the hill alongside the maple and the expanded shade garden. So now I'm back in the shade garden, sitting in this little enclave of pretty little plants. Ignore the tanks behind me. Say hi to Annabelle. Hi, Annabelle. So I've given myself quite the list of garden projects for the fall and for next year, and it's a bit daunting, but I think I've made a decision that I'm going to focus on gardening for me for a change, and I'm pretty excited about that. I've spent, well, we've been here 9 years. I've probably spent 8 of those years gardening for other people, growing food, vegetables for other people. And it's been wonderful. Don't get me wrong, it's been an amazing journey of, challenges and reward and beyond, anything that I thought I could achieve in a small amount of time on a small little piece of property. But the cost of that was that all these little fun projects that I've wanted to do as a gardener and a homesteader have been sort of pushed aside, because all of my time and energy was focused on growing for other people. And I've decided that that is going to change this year, well, next year, but at the end of this year. And so I'm rededicating myself to the garden. And oh, wait, look who's here. It's Miss Susie. Hi, Suze. Say hi. Oh. And more walks with my dog. More walks with my dog. Yes. Anyway, so yeah, I'm gonna focus on taking care of these projects that I've been talking about for years and just getting them done so we can enjoy them. We can sit under the maple and, admire the garden and listen to the birds and the bees and, just enjoy all these things instead of talking about enjoying all these things. So I'm going to take you along on this adventure, And that doesn't mean, though, that I'm going to stop growing vegetables. I will certainly still have a full and hopefully vibrant vegetable garden for us, and inviting more neighbors to share in my space as well. So there'll be all kinds of things going on in the vegetable garden, and that will also be another video coming up soon because I've been neglecting doing that as well. So anyway, that's it for now. Thank you for watching. Thank you for coming along, and we'll see you in the next video. Bye. Good girl.